How's everybody doing today?
Yay!
That was
That's
awesome.
better.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, everyone, today to ELLICSR Kitchen. My name is Jeremy Capone. I am the wellness chef.
I'm Stephanie Gladman, the registered dietitian here. And for today's class, we're going to be focusing on food and nutrition for helping with digestive health issues. So that could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So sometimes during cancer treatments or when you're on medications, whether it's during or after treatment, there can be some issues that you might experience like gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, or you might not even experience any of these side effects and want to just improve your digestive health. So going more regularly, feeling good. So we decided to kind of break up today's session into 3 different recipes that will focus on 3 of the different categories. So our first one is going to look at how can you, if you don't experience any symptoms, you're feeling good, what kinds of foods can you help or to eat in order to help your digestive health. So kind of talking about that microbiome, right? So that is your gut. And then some foods to help manage whether you're experiencing diarrhea. We'll have a recipe for that and one for constipation as well. So we're going to start with the one,
The risotto.
The risotto. Yeah, so that one, just kind of a little bit of background on digestive health. So we all have the microbiome, okay? So that is basically the central area in your, as you eat food, it goes through your mouth, into your esophagus, stomach, travels your small intestine, large intestine. That's generally, okay, what goes on. And the colon is the home of billions of microbiomes, okay? So these are healthy bacteria. And these healthy bacteria help with your immune system. It helps with, keeping things going within your digestive tract. So certain things that you may have heard about are things like probiotics and prebiotics. That familiar term? Yeah. So we're going to focus on a recipe that actually combines the 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're making a risotto. This is not your traditional risotto. So instead of using rice, we're using one of our prebiotic ingredients,
Yes.
which is barley. Now barley it's a great whole grain to use. You may see it in like soups traditionally or in salads, but it is a great swap for rice in a risotto. One of the things that I love about it, not only the fact that it's a whole grain, so it's gonna be a lot healthier, but it's a lot safer in terms of making risotto. It's very hard to overcook it, so it's like risotto with training wheels.
Yeah.
So if you're afraid to make risotto because you have to be over the stove the entire time, you got to be constantly stirring, or you got to serve it right away, otherwise it's going to get mushy. Try it with barley first. It's actually really it's a lot safer, I guess, to make, but it's also really tasty as well.
And so the thing with the prebiotics, okay, so you have the probiotics that are the healthy bacteria in your gut, which we'll go over soon, but those prebiotics actually are the food for the good bacteria, okay? So you actually need a combination of both. And like Jeremy said, most of those prebiotics are coming from high-fibered foods. So barley is an example, buckwheat, but you do have a few others mentioned on your list here. So wild rice, brown rice, bananas, leeks, garlic as well.
All right, so to start off the risotto, I am adding just some shallots. You can add onions to a pot. I got a sort of a deep saute pan with just a little bit of olive oil in there. And I just want to soften them a little bit. So I have medium heat. I don't need to get it too dark or caramelized. I'm not making caramelized onions. I just want to sort of soften them a little bit. You can add garlic at this point if you want, any of those aromatics, celery, carrot, whatever you like. I'm just going to keep it very simple. And we're just using just a little bit of shallot in there. Now for the barley, in your grocery store, you're probably going to find 2 types of barley. You're going to see pot barley and you're going to see pearl barley. Both great. You can use both in a dish like this. The difference being is that one is polished a little more than the other. And so what that means is that they're going to remove some of the fiber, some more of that fiber. So it's not going to be as high in fiber. It's also the one that's polished a little bit more is going to take a lot less time to cook because it has a lot less of that fiber. Okay, so you can use both. They're both great. They're still both prebiotics. If you're looking for more fiber, which is something we're talking about today, go for the pot one, the pot barley.
Yeah.
The pearl one, as it sounds like it's pearl, it's like pearled. It's a little more polished. It's going to take a little bit less time to cook. So just read the instructions on the back. If you're not sure about which one you have, you can usually tell by the cooking time. Pot barley is going to be like 30 to 40 minutes. Pearl barley can be like 20 to 30 minutes. Okay. So once your onions are soft, we're going to add about a cup or a cup-ish in here, and we're going to just stir it around, just to toast the grain a little bit. Again, it's not necessary for the cooking part of it, but it's just going to introduce some more of those like toasty elements to the barley. And then we can start introducing some of our liquid. Now, for traditional risotto, whatever stock you're using, if it's a chicken stock, if it's a vegetable stock, you would start ladling that in. Today, we're making a little bit of a different stock, maybe not traditional for Italian cooking, but we wanted to introduce a probiotic, and so we're making a miso-based broth for that.
So certain, there are different types of probiotics. So mostly you could find them in those fermented foods. You can also find them in yogurt, kefir. It will mostly say on the package live and active cultures, so you'll know that that's a probiotic. But it is obviously found naturally in things like miso, also aged cheeses as well. Okay. I will add though that if you are undergoing treatment and you do have a weakened immune system, these are still bacteria, so you do need to be careful about having those extra probiotics. Okay, so basically, really important, just talk to your doctor if you are on treatment, have a weakened immune system, and in that case, really focusing on those prebiotics is helpful coming from natural foods.
Has anyone used miso before? So a couple of you. Super flavorful. It's a great ingredient to use. I use it a lot to fortify my broths and my stocks because it does add a ton of flavor. It's essentially fermented soybean, and to ferment the soybean, they'll add usually referred to as koji or fermented rice grain, and that's what sort of activates and gets the fermentation going. You have different colors and different types of miso, usually depending on that grain that's used. So for like a white rice, fermented white rice, you would usually see the white miso. That's usually the milder end of the miso. And then you can get things like, this is brown miso, and it's from brown rice, dark brown rice, so you're gonna get a lot more flavor actually coming out of that. Then you can see other grains like millet and barley is used a lot of times too, to create like different flavors. So whichever one you want, you can use. Typically, the darker the miso, the more flavor that you're going to get out of it. And I don't want to add it to water that is boiling rapidly. Just simmering water and almost like steeping water at this point, and that's when I would stir the miso in. Add as much as you need. You can kind of taste as you go. If you want a little bit more flavor, you can add a little bit more. To that, I'm also going to add some dried mushrooms. Dried mushrooms are going to just add a lot more flavor to the broth, and very similar sort of umami flavor that comes from the miso you're going to get from the dried mushrooms as well. Any dried mushrooms will work. I'm adding some shiitake to this one, and that's it. I'm just going to keep it nice and warm and simmer, and then add, so I've already flavored this, but add a little bit of liquid to the barley as you go and stir it through. Now, unlike regular risotto where you have to be like stirring pretty often on top, you're doing that to release the starch from the rice to make it nice and thick and creamy. You're not going to really get much of the same action from the barley, so it really requires a lot less time spent over it. You can add like most of your liquid and just stir once in a while just to make sure it's not sticking. Once it absorbs that liquid, you add more, and you just keep adding until it's nice and tender. So a lot less time needed or required on top of this. And then once it's absorbed it all, Need a big batch for everybody. We're gonna have, I might as well bring the entire thing here. This really beautiful, dark colored barley risotto. And you can add some of those dried mushrooms back into it if you want. What I like to do is finish it with a little bit of fresh thyme or parsley, just to lighten it up a little bit. And then you can even add a little squeeze of lemon juice. And I thought I heard Steph say aged cheeses.
Yes.
So
Parmesan cheese.
Parmesan's usually
so-
close by.
Yeah, to one of your, as a probiotic. And again, just to highlight, we know that fiber is important, right, for general digestion and health, but there is so much more and more research showing the different types of fiber that we need in order to improve that gut microbiome. So, it's not necessary to necessarily take a pill supplement. Definitely can get it through foods. And so just kind of, we all know that fiber is important, but just watching out for those specific prebiotic ones. Like I said, the buckwheat, the barley, different whole grains like brown rice as well, in order to bump it up.
So this is like a good sized portion for me, probably. But I mean, that's pretty much it. You can serve it as is. The nice thing about the barley risotto as well, you can even make it a day in advance, warm it up and out of the refrigerator the next day, and the texture is going to still be pretty nice and tender. It doesn't break down as quickly as rice breaks down. So it's a great little substitute for rice in a risotto. That's our first recipe.
Yeah.
Any questions? Yes.